façon virtuelle et chacun de nous se trouve sur une terre habitée par des peuples autochtones depuis des temps immémoriaux, I invite you to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands that you call home. My name is Nicole Giles, and I am the Deputy Director and Senior Assistant Deputy Minister of Policy and Strategic Partnerships at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS. C'est avec honneur que je serai votre maîtresse de cérémonie à l'occasion du premier discours annuel de M. Dan Rogers, directeur du Service canadien du renseignement de sécurité, USCRS. Canadians are better equipped to confront the threats that we face when they understand them. Equally, CSIS's ability to operate relies heavily upon the trust and support of Canadians. While much of what CSIS does necessarily occurs in secret, sharing details work when we can furthers these goals. Which brings us to why we're all here. Today is a rare occasion when the Director of CSIS can address Canadians directly to help them understand the increasing complexity of our environment, the higher demand for our work, and the excellence and dedication that the people of CSIS demonstrate daily. With a career spanning 2 decades in national security, Dan Rogers was appointed Director of CSIS in October 2024. He previously served as Deputy National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister from May 2023 to October 2024, where he supported the National Security and Intelligence Advisor in coordinating and providing advice to the Prime Minister and government on a very full range of national security issues. Avant cela, il a passé la majeure partie de sa carrière au Centre de la sécurité des télécommunications, où il a débuté en 2002 en tant que développeur des logiciels et a occupé divers postes de direction clés dans des programmes de renseignement classifiés, en tant que directeur exigence en matière de renseignement électromagnétique, puis comme chef adjoint. Please join me in welcoming Dan Rogers.
Thanks. Thank you, Nicole. Distinguished guests, members of the press, and fellow Canadians, thank you for joining me today and allowing me to provide you with an update on the security challenges facing Canada. Invités d'honneur, membres de la presse, concitoyennes et concitoyens canadiens, merci d'être ici aujourd'hui et de me donner l'occasion de parler des défis auxquels fait face le Canada en matière de sécurité. It's my first time addressing Canadians as the Director of CSIS, and I do so at a time when Canada's national security environment is more complex and dynamic than at any point in recent memory. Polarization and radicalization are on the rise, and social cohesion is eroding. Global events are unpredictable, and competition between states is intensifying. Our global environment emboldens competitors, attempts to interfere and spy, and advancements in technology enable our adversaries while challenging us to adapt. All aspects of national security have risen in urgency and in priority, and the demands on our service are unrelenting, and there is no clear path to a simpler future. But while challenged, CSIS has remained strong and able. We have trusted partners in Canada and abroad, and together with them, we've acted decisively to keep Canadians safe. Our intelligence professionals devote themselves to protecting the rights, freedoms, and safety of all in Canada. Even when they aren't aware of it, Canadians benefit greatly from their work. En parlant aujourd'hui de ce que nous avons constaté et de ce que nous avons fait, j'espère aider les Canadiens et les Canadiennes à mieux comprendre le contexte de la sécurité nationale. J'espère les aider à renforcer leur résilience face aux menaces, à prendre les décisions plus éclairées et se joindre à nous pour protéger la sécurité et la prospérité de notre pays. Je vais commencer par aborder le sujet de la menace liée à l'extrémisme violent. This year marks 40 years since the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history, the bombing of Air India Flight 182. This tragic event killed all 329 people on board, most of them Canadians, and it was a truly terrible moment in Canadian history. It serves as an important reminder of the consequences of violent extremism. The threat of violence, motivated by extreme religious, ideological, or political views, has changed significantly over the last 40 years, but it persists as one of Canada's most significant national security concerns. Today's violent extremists are motivated by an increasingly diverse, often personalized set of extreme beliefs, including xenophobia, accelerationism, nihilism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, extreme interpretations of religion, and more. Increasingly, violent extremists with these different ideologies find common causes through their shared targets. They find inspiration and motivation in the events and trends that polarize society or cause them to lose hope for the future. And they easily access and amplify content online that radicalizes them and reinforces their view that violence is justified to achieve their extremist goals. Worryingly, nearly 1 in 10 terrorism investigations at CSIS now includes at least one subject of investigation under the age of 18. En août 2025, une personne d'âge mineur a été arrêtée à Montréal parce qu'elle aurait planifié un attentat au nom de Daesh. In May 2025, a 15-year-old Edmonton area minor was arrested for terrorism-related offense as RCMP investigators feared they would commit serious violence related to COM764, a transnational violent online network that manipulates children and youth across widely accessible online platforms. And only a few kilometers from this room, in late 2023 and early 2024, 2 15-year-olds were arrested in Ottawa for allegedly conspiring to conduct a mass casualty attack targeting the Jewish community in Canada's capital. Clearly, radicalized youth can cause the same harms as radicalized adults, but the societal supports for youth may help us catch radicalization early and prevent it. This is why CSIS joined the RCMP and our intelligence partners from the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand in releasing a joint public report in December 2024 highlighting the evolving issue of young people and violent extremism. It provides advice to parents, guardians, and others with information to help them identify early concerns and address youth radicalization before it's too late. Fortunately, only a small number of youth or adults with extreme views resort to violence, but when they do, the consequences are devastating. Since 2014, there have been 20 violent extremist attacks in Canada, resulting in 29 deaths and at least 60 victims injured. Ces résultats tragiques auraient été plus élevés si le SCRS et nos partenaires chargés de l'application de la loi n'avaient pas pris de mesures de perturbation. Since 2022, CSIS has been involved in the disruption of no fewer than 24 violent extremist actions, each resulting in arrests or terrorism peace bond charges. For example, in 2024, CSIS played an integral role in the disruption of 2 Daesh-inspired plots. In one case, a father and son were allegedly in the advanced stages of planning an attack in the Toronto area. In another, an individual was arrested before allegedly attempting to illegally enter the United States to attack members of the Jewish community in New York. In these examples, and in many others I can't discuss publicly, our counterterrorism teams have partnered with law enforcement to save lives. They worked hard, day and night, and I'm deeply proud of their dedication. I hope that Canadians feel safer because of their ongoing efforts and because of their regular success. Cela dit, l'érosion de la cohésion sociale, l'augmentation de la polarisation et les événements importants qui se déroulent dans le monde constituent un terreau fertile pour la radicalisation. Et de nombreuses personnes qui choisissent la violence se radicalisent exclusivement en ligne par elles-mêmes. Ces personnes utilisent la technologie pour agir en toute confidentialité et en tout anonymat, ce qui nuit à la capacité de nos enquêteurs de suivre la cadence et de déceler et prévenir les actes de violence. C'est notamment pour cette raison que la lutte contre l'extrémisme violent demeurera une partie importante de notre travail, bien qu'elle représente maintenant moins de la moitié de nos efforts. L'année dernière, l'enquête publique sur l'ingérence étrangère et le travail de la juge Hogue ont aidé la population canadienne à mieux comprendre comment les États étrangers ont tenté de s'ingérer en secret dans le processus et les institutions démocratiques du Canada. This past spring, Canada held its 45th general election, during which CSIS focused our efforts to identify foreign interference and take action to counter it. As the chair of the Security and Intelligence Threats to Elections Task Force, CSIS coordinated our country's security and intelligence response and supported an independent panel of senior public servants in monitoring threats to the election. We applied the lessons learned from past experience, Justice Hogue's report, review bodies, and others to do this work better and more transparently than ever. We shared the results of our efforts through weekly briefings to the media by senior officials during the election period and in October. Canadians can now read the details in our after-action reports online. In essence, while we did see some foreign interference activity of concern, Canadians can be assured that we saw nothing that had an impact on our ability to have a free and fair election. Le CRS restera vigilant de façon à détecter des tentatives d'ingérence étrangère dans les processus et les institutions démocratiques du Canada. Nous prendrons les mesures qui s'imposent et qui nous continuerons de fournir des informations à la population canadienne pour qu'elle demeure résiliente et bien informée. Bien entendu, l'ingérence étrangère n'a pas seulement une incidence sur les processus et les institutions démocratiques du pays. Canada is a country that thrives in its diversity and guarantees the individual rights and freedoms of all within its borders. And when foreign states don't share our respect for these rights and feel threatened or embarrassed by the lawful activity of individuals in Canada, they sometimes resort to direct intimidation, influence, or reprisal. We refer to this as transnational repression. Transnational repression disproportionately targets human rights and political activists, journalists, and others in cultural, ethnic, and religious groups. We've observed this in Canada in the form of surveillance, in the spreading of false and discrediting information, extortion, the threatening of loved ones abroad, and at its most extreme, threats to safety and life. Ces actes ont des conséquences néfastes graves sur les personnes visées. Ils ont aussi pour effet d'intimider d'autres personnes, les dissuadant par exemple d'exercer leur droit à la liberté d'expression. Ils peuvent en outre dissuader des personnes de prendre part à des activités licites de défense d'une cause ou de participer pleinement à la vie communautaire ou la démocratie. As a Canadian institution that proudly defends the rights of all in Canada, CSIS collects intelligence and acts to defend against transnational repression. In the past, we've publicly discussed transnational repression by the People's Republic of China, India, and others. Particularly, in alarming cases over the last year, we've had to reprioritize our operations to counter the actions of Iranian intelligence services and their proxies who have targeted individuals they perceive as threats to their regime. In more than one case, this involved detecting, investigating, and disrupting potentially lethal threats against individuals in Canada. While CSIS can take action to counter transnational repression, we don't often do it alone. Our work with law enforcement often serves as our best defense. Also, alongside Public Safety Canada's Counter Foreign Interference Coordinator, we partner with ethnic, religious, and cultural communities. Dialogue with them serves equally to share our information about transnational repression and to help us better understand their experiences. Malheureusement, la répression transnationale et les autres formes d'ingérence étrangère ne sont pas les seules menaces qui font peser les autres États sur le Canada. Today's geopolitical environment is more dynamic and unpredictable than at any other time in recent memory. International relationships are shifting and states are competing more intensely for economic opportunity and global influence. Our adversaries monitor and seek to exploit any weakness and division that may arise. It's an environment where the value of intelligence is at its highest, and our adversaries will be more assertive than ever in trying to obtain it. Intelligence services have long focused their espionage efforts on those with access to sensitive or classified information. Government and military secrets, including insights into technology and economic strategies, have been the primary goals. Today, while the goals are similar, the targets are more varied. Some of the world's most advanced and emergent technology is now held by private sector and academic institutions. National governments are still targeted for sensitive intelligence, military and economic secrets, but so too are corporations and other levels of government whose data, technological innovations, influence, and access to resources can shift the balance of advantage. Le Canada jouit une économie avancée. Il regorge de ressources naturelles. Il occupe aussi une position enviable et influente au sein des tribunes multilatérales comme l'OTAN, le G7 et le Groupe des Cinq, une alliance des services de renseignement. Les réussites du Canada font de lui un pays prospère. Elles font aussi de lui une cible. Et le SCRS est régulièrement témoin des efforts déployés par les services de renseignement étrangers pour recueillir des renseignements dans tous les secteurs de la société canadienne. Les informations classifiées et sensibles du gouvernement du Canada continueront d'être la cible des services de renseignement étrangers, notamment les services de renseignement civil et militaire de la Chine. Par l'entremise de médias sociaux et des plateformes de recherche d'emploi en ligne, les espions chinois ont tenté de recruter les personnes canadiennes qui avaient accès aux plans, aux intentions et aux informations du gouvernement, ainsi qu'à de l'expertise militaire. En collaboration avec ses partenaires, le CRS a trouvé des façons de repérer et de contrer ces tentatives au cours de la dernière année. Nous travaillons aussi régulièrement avec Affaires mondiales Canada, le Centre de la sécurité des télécommunications et d'autres partenaires pour contrer les menaces d'espionnage provenant de la Russie. Cette collaboration nous permet, par exemple, d'utiliser les renseignements pour repérer des officiers de renseignement russes et empêcher leur venue au Canada. Notre collaboration avec les partenaires canadiens et alliés nous permet aussi d'affaiblir les services de renseignement russes à l'échelle mondiale. Par exemple, en contrant des tentatives de sabotage par l'entremise des entreprises de messagerie commerciale et de l'industrie du transport. Nos efforts en matière de contre-espionnage ne contribuent pas seulement à assurer la sécurité du Canada. Ils ont aussi autres effets positifs. As was recently highlighted in the media, illicit Russian procurement networks seek to illegally acquire Canadian goods and technologies, which they move to Russia through a complex series of front companies based around the world. Once in Russia, these Canadian products are then used to support Russian military efforts in Ukraine and elsewhere. This year, CSIS took action to prevent this by informing several Canadian companies that Europe-based front companies seeking to acquire their goods were in fact connected to Russian agents. These companies not only took immediate action to deny the Russians their success, but they also expressed gratitude and interest in working together to counter any future Russian activity. Canada is a proud Arctic nation, and the global Arctic has become a theater of increased interest due to its economic and strategic potential. Non-Arctic states, including the People's Republic of China, seek to gain a strategic and economic foothold in the region. Russia, an Arctic state with a significant military presence in the region, remains unpredictable and aggressive. Both of these countries, and others, have a significant intelligence interest in our Arctic, and those who influence or develop its economic or strategic potential. It's no surprise, then, that CSIS has observed both cyber and non-cyber intelligence collection efforts targeting both governments and the private sector in the region. So what are we doing? Well, we collect intelligence to identify any state activity that's counter to Canada's national interest. We engage significantly with Indigenous, Arctic, and Northern partners across Canada to develop awareness of what we observed and to learn from their insights. In essence, we're positioning ourselves to partner and defend Canada's interests whenever it becomes necessary. For example, we've provided Inuit and territorial governments with information that empowers them to take into account national security interests as they make decisions about economic and research opportunities with foreign companies and investors. Les modifications apportées à la loi sur le SCRS l'an dernier ont facilité ces démarches et nous avons l'intention de poursuivre sur cette lancée au cours des années à venir. De plus, nous ne sommes pas limités au Nord. Partout au Canada, nous sommes efforcés de renforcer nos relations avec le secteur privé, le monde universitaire et les autres paliers de gouvernement pour les sensibiliser à l'espionnage et les aider à se protéger. Par exemple, nous avons collaboré avec le Conseil canadien des affaires, la Chambre de commerce du Canada et d'autres organisations, et nous avons l'intention de miser sur ces partenariats pour aider à garantir la sécurité économique du Canada. J'ai fait un survol des menaces actuelles en matière d'extrémisme violent, de l'ingérence étrangère et de l'espionnage, mais j'aurais pu vous en présenter bien d'autres. Foreign governments will continue to manipulate and propagate information in their interests. The threat of hostile, hybrid, and cyber operations against us continues to rise. And the nexus between criminal groups and state actors challenges traditional definitions and complicates our efforts to respond. It will be important for CSIS and its national security partners to work closely together to understand the intentions and activity of foreign states when they act against our interest, and to ensure our response uses the full range of government options. En raison des avancées technologiques, notamment l'intelligence artificielle, les méthodes employées par les États et les acteurs étrangers hostiles sont beaucoup plus sophistiquées. At the same time, Canada's data increasingly resides in the hands of foreign governments and the corporations in their jurisdictions. This arms states who may choose to act against Canada's interests with new ways to weaponize data and information. In response, CSIS will be challenged to adopt technology and use data in new and more significant ways to keep Canadians safe and to secure an advantage for Canada. I understand that what I've covered today is concerning, but my intent is not to alarm. I want to reassure Canadians that CSIS and the rest of Canada's security and intelligence community is here and working tirelessly in their best interests. As the threats shift and evolve, CSIS will continue to prioritize deliberately and ruthlessly and become comfortable with an extraordinary pace of change. Le gouvernement devra relever les défis qui s'offrent à lui et s'efforcer d'obtenir des avantages dans le cadre de ses relations internationales, qui deviennent chaque jour plus complexes. À cet égard, le SCRS jouera un rôle de soutien important et indispensable, car ces renseignements serviront les intérêts nationaux du Canada et aideront à garantir sa souveraineté. Our many trusted intelligence relationships with partner services across the globe will allow us to cooperate to defend our shared interests. Our ability to act against and to engage with competitors and adversaries will give the government options to address security challenges whenever necessary. And as you've heard today, our environment provides real and significant challenges for CSIS. But in my first year as director, I've been continually reminded of one of our greatest advantages. The people of CSIS are passionate and capable. They are deeply proud to serve Canada and have dedicated themselves to defending the rights, freedoms, and way of life that define what it is to be Canadian. As their director, I am proud of their tireless devotion and service of all Canadians, even when their most significant work is often not known and recognized outside of our walls. I hope that Canadians will join me in taking pride in their work and take comfort in CSIS's able and steadfast efforts to keep them safe and prosperous. Thank you. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Directeur. J'invite maintenant les membres accrédités des médias à se diriger vers la salle de la Lanterne pour se préparer au point de presse avec le directeur Rogers, qui débutera dans 15 minutes. Other guests are invited to remain and to join us in continuing the discussion, where we will encourage fierce debate. Once again, thank you very much to all of those who are here in person and those tuning in online. Your participation and engagement is an important avenue for encouraging a strong national security dialogue, which will help to build a strong and resilient Canada. Thank you et merci.
Blad. I'm the Chief Issues Management at CSIS. I'll be moderating for you today. We're going to take 15 minutes for this scrum, and we'll do the usual format of 1+1. I would ask you to keep your questions as short as possible so that we could give everybody a chance to ask their questions. S'il vous plaît, on a 15 minutes seulement pour le scrum. On va faire le format habituel de une question plus un suivi. Je vous demande de garder vos questions courtes, si possible, pour permettre à tout le monde de poser les questions. Et donc, je vous demanderai aussi de vous présenter avant de poser votre question et de présenter votre organisation. So before you ask your question, please introduce yourself and your media organization. We'll start now. Thank you.
Alex Butler with Global News. Hi. You mentioned transnational repression in your speech. Last year, the concern about repression from India was significant enough that the RCMP actually had to warn the public about it. I'm wondering how you would characterize the threat specifically from India today.
It's a great question. I think that one of the benefits is that Canada has been very public about what it's seen over the last year, and I think the reason that you heard me mention that today is it's because it's something CSIS still continues to be very vigilant against. I would say that when we have more to say on that subject, we'll be able to say it, and we won't be afraid to call it out, but right now, I think Canadians know everything there is to know about that.
So should we assume that the situation is the same as last year, like status quo?
Well, I mean, we're continuing to be vigilant. We've met with Indian counterparts. The relationship continues to evolve. We're trying to do that in a way that makes sure that Canadians' national security is safe.
Hi, Bob Fife from the Globe and Mail. Thank you for doing this. Director, can you, we're in fraught negotiations with the United States. There's a lot at stake. Does CSIS have to take any particular precautions because of concerns that the American intelligence agencies are listening in?
Thanks for the question. What I would say is that in spite of changes in administration and priorities, the relationship between Canada and the United States in the national security area remains strong. We have a number of common interests that persist. We both don't want terrorism, we both don't want espionage, we both don't want foreign interference, and so the working relationships stay very strong and joint. It's in Canada's best interest to continue those. We benefit greatly from intelligence and security sharing by the United States, and we contribute back, so I think it's still strong.
And second question, on the foreign agent registry, is it CSIS's opinion that a foreign agent registry would be a useful tool?
I think that when it's in place, we're going to be very happy to use it to its maximum extent.
Hi, Kat Tunney from CBC. There's lots of talk kind of elsewhere today about nation-building projects, and clearly this government has a bid to attract billions of dollars of private investment. Given CSIS's concerns about foreign investment, at least in the past, do you have any concerns about this government's approach?
Well, I mean, I can understand a lot of reasons why the government will want to attract investment and have different and more complex relationships with foreign states and foreign corporations. For CSIS, our role isn't to dissuade the government from doing that if it's in the best interest of Canadians. For us, it's our job to make sure that the security implications of that are known and mitigated. So when we want to work on that, we'll work closely with the government to make sure that they're informed and that if we can take action to help mitigate any risks, that we'll do so.
This government also seems somewhat determined to repair or at least restart its relation with China. What kind of conversations are you having with the Prime Minister as he kind of goes down that path?
Our role still is unchanged. We provide the government with intelligence and advice on national security threats. That has not stopped. It continues very actively. I would say that as the shifting nature of relationships between Canada and China or Canada and any other country evolve, we're going to have to evolve our operations to make sure that the right intelligence gets to the government when necessary.
Judy Trin with CTV News. In your speech today, you gave very particular examples of Russian interference, Russian espionage. You passively referenced activities in regards to China and India. Was that a specific strategy in which, in light of the political situation we're in and how we're trying to, I guess, improve trade with those two nations?
Well, actually, I just think that Canada has said a lot about Russia and China and India in the last year. I would say the public inquiry was a testament to how much we can actually say about that. I would say that Canada is not going to be shy, or at least CSIS isn't going to be shy to come public with information when it's in Canada's national interest to do that and when it's in our national security interests. But today I gave examples that were new and things that Canadians hadn't heard before.
To clarify, so there is nothing new in terms of espionage activities or foreign interference or transnational repression that China and India are doing that you think is pertinent to tell the public at this moment in terms of their safety?
Yeah, well, what I would say is, on any given day, CSIS is monitoring and collecting intelligence and preventing any number of threats. We can't speak about the majority of those publicly. What I would say is when it is in Canada's national interest and when we need to speak publicly about them to help assure Canada's national security, we will do that, but it won't happen all the time.
Hi, Director. Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. You mentioned in your speech concern about Canadians' data being increasingly in the hands of foreign governments. Can you just elaborate on that and what you see as a fix for that situation?
Thank you. I mean, the fix will be complicated, and I'll start there. There may be some policy responses to that the government will want to consider. That's outside of CSIS's lane. What I would say is where we talk about data, I mean, it gives not just privacy concerns maybe to Canadians, but if there's a government that seeks to conduct transnational repression, having data about Canadians that they may seek to conduct that against could be to their advantage. And so when we've spoken publicly before about certain types of data, it's to be able to make sure that Canadians are eyes wide open in where they're putting their data and what kind of platforms and who that data is under the control of.
You mentioned Canada and U.S. national security relationships still being strong and having common interests when it comes to things like counterterrorism. Is it still the case that we share value in administration and we can trust them when it comes to things like that, given their strikes on alleged drug boats, their designating of Antifa as a terror group, their deportations of students? Can we still trust them on those issues?
As I've said before, I think that we have a very significant overlap in our interests when it comes to national security. And I think we benefit greatly from the relationship, including the sharing from the U.S., but the U.S. benefits from our sharing too. So I think that the relationship does stay trusted. It's in Canada's best interests to maintain it and to keep it as active and as healthy as possible in a way that respects Canadian values and rights.
Christopher Nardi from the National Post. You've mentioned, obviously, having to refocus a lot of your resources on Iran. You've talked about increased threats, China, India. But you also mentioned that it's more complicated and CSIS is going to have to do more work to obtain or collect more data. Do you believe that CSIS has the legal tools, the necessary resources, despite the 2% cuts in the budget, to effectively fulfill your mandate, particularly on the tools issue?
I mean, I think it's a constant evolution. The tools we had a few years ago are probably not the tools that we need today, and the tools we'll need in 3 years will be different than the tools we have today. So there's no place in time where I think we're going to be done evolving and when our tools are exactly right for now and for the future. So it's hard to answer the question, could we use more? Of course, there's a huge amount of threats, but we will make the best with what we have. And my comment in the speech today was about the need to prioritize. I think at any given day, we have to be very disciplined at putting our resources and tools to best effect, and that's what our challenge is today.
So you mentioned, though, there are tools that you could use more of. What would those be, for example?
Well, I have to be careful because I have to give the government advice on that before I give it to you publicly.
Or you could just do it here.
It's a nice try. But we'll provide that advice to the government as they continue to think through what they might want to do on national security. And if they choose to look at CSIS legislation, we'll be happy to give them our advice.
Hi, Matthew Horde with the Epoch Times. With the Liberal government signaling a re-engagement with China and India, is CSIS being consulted on the shift? And is that re-engagement changing the way you operate with respect to those two countries?
Well, with respect to those two countries and every other, we provide our government with intelligence and information, and that hasn't changed. We continue to provide that to decision makers, ministers, the Prime Minister, and other departments and agencies who can act on behalf of that intelligence. I would say that in a country agnostic way, but even with respect to those countries, we are having to make sure that we monitor the way that those relationships evolve and make sure that we provide our intelligence prioritization and work accordingly.
I was just wondering if you could expand on your comments that nearly 1 in 10 terrorism investigations at CSIS now includes at least one subject of investigation under the age of 18. What do you think is responsible for that shift in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, as a security service, I don't want to pretend I am a sociology expert, but we have seen trends that are concerning. When we see youth who find their purpose online or seek purpose online that's not in a localized community, that's not in a physical community, they can do it in an online environment, and they may find more comfort there. They might find a sense of purpose that's driving them in an unfortunate direction. What we've tried to do, and I mentioned this in the speech, is work with Five Eyes partners in the RCMP to come out with guidance that allows parents, guardians, and the community to help identify when that's happening and try and intervene early, whether that means talking to support structures, talking to their children, or even in some cases talking to us or police to help intervene.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Directeur. Ma question va être en français, mais feel free to respond in English if you're
Merci.
comfortable. Vous avez mentionné le besoin de prioriser, et là aujourd'hui vous nous affichez tout ce qui s'est passé dans l'année sur plusieurs enjeux. Qu'est-ce qui vous inquiète le plus? Sur quoi vous voudriez prioriser vos forces maintenant?
Oh, merci, c'est une bonne question. Un peu de mon message aujourd'hui est que c'est difficile à prioriser parce que toutes les priorités sont urgentes au même moment. Et c'est ça qui vraiment, that's what really keeps me up at night, I would say. I mean, il y avait un moment, peut-être 10 ans ou 20 ans en passé, que le terrorisme était la priorité. Mais maintenant, c'est pas ça. C'est les autres pays, c'est l'ingérence étrangère, c'est l'espionnage, c'est la sécurité économique, c'est beaucoup de choses. Alors, c'est le volume et la complexité de les matières that are keeping me up at night.
Mm-hmm. Vous parlez longuement de l'Arctique dans votre discours et de l'espionnage en Arctique. C'est aussi un terrain où notre gouvernement veut développer énormément de grands projets d'intérêt nationaux. Concrètement, quand vous parlez de cyber-intelligence, non-cyber-intelligence, est-ce que vous pouvez nous donner des exemples concrets de choses qui se sont passées dans la dernière année en Arctique qui ne devraient plus se passer selon les interventions que vous avez faites?
Merci pour la question. C'est un peu difficile parce que nous devons réfléchir beaucoup avant qu'on dise les choses en public, si c'est spécifique, pour sécuriser nos opérations. Mais il y a des exemples qui sont publics déjà. Il y a des cas qu'on a décrits publiquement des attaques cyber contre les institutions du secteur privé et du gouvernement arctique. Nous pouvons donner des exemples si vous voulez, mais there are a few public examples already of cyber attacks.
Jim Bronskill, the Canadian Press. To follow up on my colleague's question, how do you differentiate in the Arctic between intelligence collection efforts by Russia and China and legitimate investment and the kind of economic activity Canada is trying to attract?
Well, it's a bit case by case. I would say we certainly don't intend to disrupt any economic activity. What we're trying to do is look at the intentions and the actions of any foreign government that could be hostile to our interests. I mean, for instance, we'll often talk about whether something is done overtly or not. If it's a front company that we know is tied to a particular state and they're obfuscating their involvement for some reason, that might be something we would need to look into operationally to find out the purpose for that obfuscation or that lack of transparency. And in those cases, we may seek to inform others, including businesses, of those sorts of things so that they can be mindful.
On intelligence sharing with U.S., has Canada or is Canada sharing any intelligence that will lead to the targeting of alleged drug boats in the Caribbean or elsewhere by the U.S.?
We haven't made any general policy decisions that have changed our position with the United States. As I've said earlier, we continue to benefit very greatly from our intelligence partnership with the U.S. But what I will say is that it is typical for CSIS intelligence to be shared on a case-by-case basis, and that includes in accordance with Canadian law, which means we look at human rights concerns and other things every time we share with any country.
Thank you. This will be the last question.
Steve Chase with the Globe and Mail. Has CSIS devoted any effort to looking at the Alberta separatist movement and any interference by foreign countries, including the United States?
Well, just to be super clear, our intelligence does prevent us from looking, our act restricts us to looking at a category of activities that is certainly above lawful advocacy or protest, so anything that is not defined in that national security threat sphere is not something we would look into. When it comes to the actions of other countries, I think I've said what I can say publicly today, but we're not looking into advocacy or protest or any kind of political debate.
Okay, because there were stories about them meeting with people in the Trump White House. My second question is, I want to follow up on my Globe colleagues' question. Are you saying we have nothing to fear from American espionage or signals intelligence hacking in Canada?
What I'm saying is that it's in Canada's best interest and continues to be in our national interest to have a strong partnership with the United States that includes a strong security partnership and a strong intelligence partnership.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. That's the end of our scrum. Merci tout le monde. C'est la fin du scrum.
Merci.